לשים בחושך את כל הצרות.
Hi, my name is Dorale Shachter.
I'm Barry.
This is Berry, and we are so glad to be part of the Chabad Youth Clubs. We're very sad we're back in lockdown, but we're not sad to bring our kitchen to you. So what we're going to be making here today is a whole meal, and this means that you kids who are at home, you can say to your mums, I'm ready to cook tonight, just need help with a couple of things. So we're going to be making meatballs with rice and apple crumble. How does that sound?
Yum.
Yum. Okay. Berry's favourite dinner is meatballs. So what we're going to do is, for our family, we need more than just the recipe that we're making here, so you can also double or triple it for your family if you need. Berry's going to make a single recipe here with a half a kilo of mincemeat, and I'm going to make a big batch over here with 2 kilos of mincemeat. That will be enough for our family and some for the freezer as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to put on our gloves. I've got the larger size and Berry has the smaller size.
Small.
Because we're going to mix with our hands, because it's going to make this job a little bit easier. So what we've got here in the bowl, Berry has a half a kilo of mincemeat, and we're going to add into that 1 egg. Now, we all know, what do we do with an egg?
Check it first.
We check it first, make sure there are no blood spots. We've got it here in a clear cup. What do you reckon, Berry?
Sides look good.
But this is one of the jobs that an adult or someone over bar bus mitzvah has to do for you, because we're going to make sure that there are no blood spots, and that's a job for someone who is a girl over 12 or a boy over 13. So you can pop that in. Mine's already in. Wonderful. Put that down. And we're also going to add in here a third of a cup of cornflake crumbs. You can use breadcrumbs or cornflake crumbs. These are actually just cornflakes which I've crushed up in the food processor. You can pop that in. Mine's already in. Like I said before, we've got 2 tablespoons of dried onion flakes. You can pop that in. And 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And you can pop that in as well. Now the recipe calls for a half a teaspoon of pepper, but our family doesn't like pepper, so we're going to
Skip that.
skip that. Okay, so I've got my mixture here. You've got your mixed mixture there, and we're just going to mix it up. And we're going to mix and mix and mix.
This is fun.
This is fun, isn't it? Okay, so I'm just going to mix until it's all mixed through. Okay? You can turn around the bowl. I'm glad you've got more space in your bowl than I have in mine. I'm making a bit of a mess over here with flying mincemeats. Okay? But don't worry, we'll wash it all down
Did
afterwards.
it fly to the snow?
No, it flew over the bench. Okay. So we've got here our mince, and we're just turning around in the bowl until it's all mixed through. And the better it's mixed through, the more fluffy and soft your meatballs are going to be. Okay. Have you got it?
I think so.
Okay. Let me have a little feel. Wonderful, Berry. Yours is mixed through much better because you've got more space in your bowl.
Yeah,
That's
I
excellent.
usually go with that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to put these to the side and prepare our sauce first. So let's put these over to the side, over here, just here, it's fine, in front of us. And we're going to take off these gloves because they've got warm meat on them while we mix the sauce, and we'll put on another pair of gloves afterwards. Okay, so we've cleaned up the bench a little bit just to get rid of any meat that has exploded out of the bowl, and we're going to mix together the sauce ingredients. We're going to put this 500 grams of passata, that's tomato sauce, which is just straight crushed tomatoes blended into a sauce, into our pot, and give that a good squeeze to make sure it's all out. Good job. Now what I like to do, before we squish the carton up too much, is I like to just, can you pop a little bit of water in there? And we'll get out the last little bits of, that's enough. And we'll shake that around and get the last little bits of sauce out and into the pot. Wonderful. Okay, that's great. You can put that to the side. And we're going to take a half a cup of ketchup, tomato sauce, Australian tomato sauce ketchup, and we're going to pop that in, and I'm just going to use my spoon to whoop. That was a bit of a funny drop. And we're going to pour that all, the last little bits of, that's enough. And we'll shake that around and get the last little bits of sauce out and into the pot. Wonderful. Okay, that's great. You can put that to the side. And we're going to take a half a cup of ketchup, tomato sauce, Australian tomato sauce ketchup, and we're going to pop that in, and I'm just going to use my spoon to whoop, that was a bit of a funny drop. And we're going to pour that all into our bowl. Okay, and into that we're also going to put in the juice of half of a lemon and half a teaspoon of salt.
Oh, there's a pip.
A little pip, you can pull that out, you can get that out. That's all right, our hands are nice and clean because we washed them before we started. A teaspoon of garlic granules and a tablespoon of onion powder or onion flakes and a tablespoon of soy sauce. And we're going to mix that all up. Wonderful. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get that onto the stove, and we're going to let that start to simmer while our meat rests for about 15 minutes. Wonderful job, Barry. You've mixed that up beautifully. We're going to let that simmer for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to add the meat in. Okay. So we've just popped that onto a medium flame, and we've got our meat resting over here to the side. In the meantime, we're going to prepare some rice. Barry, can you bring over that container? Careful. Okay, so we've got a Pyrex dish. You can prepare it in a foil pan if you like, but I like the way it comes out in a Pyrex dish a lot better. And we're going to mix into that our 2 cups of rice. Barry, if you could help out with that, please. Okay, and now this is the trick to really good rice. We're actually going to make this in the oven, not on the stove. It's sort of a no-fail recipe. It always works. And the trick to it is that we're going to mix our oil and our salt into the rice before we add the water. Okay, so we've got here 2 tablespoons of oil. Any kind of oil will work. And we've got here 2 teaspoons of the low sodium Massel chicken stock powder, and also 2 teaspoons of salt. So we're going to mix that in, and I'm going to give you a spoon, and if you could just mix that around so that each grain of rice is beautifully coated with the oil, the salt, and the chicken stock powder.
So are we basically flavoring it?
We're flavouring the rice, but at the same time we're also coating each grain of rice so that when it grows and puffs up in the oven, each grain of rice stays separate and they don't stick to each other, and then they're also tasty. Okay, yeah. How about all of those grains of rice over here, Barry?
It makes a very loud noise.
It does make a bit of a noise, and we're just going to make sure that all those ones in the corner are mixed in as well.
Some on the side there.
Some on the side over here as well. So you can see we've got lovely and shiny rice over here. Okay.
Really shiny.
And we're just going to make that nice and flat. We don't have to be too careful with it, and we're going to fill that up with water. So if we've got 2 cups of rice, we're going to do 4 cups of water. And Barry, if you could just get some cold water from the tap for that. All the way to the top, we have to make sure, because we did full cups of rice, we need full cups of water. There you go. Okay, so Barry's put in the 4 cups of rice, and now what we're going to do is we're going to just cover it up with a piece of foil so that the rice is going to steam inside the pan. Now make sure that you've got a pan that's big enough that's going to be able to have the rice in it when it's fully cooked. Okay, and we're going to turn on our oven. I know my oven says 160, but it's quite a hot oven, so 170, 180 is fine. And just be careful because it's got water inside. And that's going to cook for about 40 minutes, and then it's going to be perfect. Now there's one more trick to having really good rice, and that's after it comes out of the oven, take it out and let it sit for 10 minutes before you try to fluff up all the grains. If you try to fluff them up when they're too hot, it's just going to break apart on you, and it's not going to be really good, fluffy, separate grains of rice. Okay, we're going to put that to the side. I'm going to take our spoon that we had before for mixing up the sauce, and we're just going to give this sauce a bit of a stir, and that's really coming together quite nicely. Okay, so we're going to turn that a little bit lower now, and we're going to prepare our meatballs. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get another pair of gloves. So So you can take the smalls and I'll take the mediums. And we're going to take our meatball mix and we're going to shape them into meatballs. Now, a really good way of doing that is with just a little bit of water. If we have wet hands when we make the meatballs, it's going to give us a really nice shape. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to use a scooper so that we get our meatballs all to be exactly the same size. And the way it's going to work is like this. You can take the scooper and make a scoop like this, pop it with your hand, and you roll it. But if your hands are wet, it won't stick to your hands, and they'll also have a nice soft surface on the outside. Sorry, a nice sort of shiny surface on the outside, so that they won't be smushy and bitsy. Okay, so we're going to run this along the side. Wet your hands a little bit in the bowl of water. Wet the palm of your hands a bit. That's it. And there you go, you can start rolling that into a ball. Now I'm going to do the same thing. And we're just going to keep going. And every now and then, just wet your hands.
הגיע לילה, כיבוי אורות, לשים בחושך את כל הצרות, ולחיות את הרגע ולא לחכות.
Excellent. Right, we're almost done here, Danny. We've got good size meatballs. They're about the size of a golf ball. Have you got the last one? There's a little bit left in the spoon. Oh, that's a bit big, that one, but that'll be all right. There we go. Don't waste any meat. I'm going to put them to the side. Okay, this part here is a job for an adult. I'm going to place them into the sauce. So we're going to take our meatballs and we're going to place them into our sauce. Mary, could you get out the clear glass lid from the bottom drawer, please? The bottom drawer. Okay, so we're putting all of our meatballs in, and if we want our meatballs to be nice and fluffy, what we do is we put the lid on. And now, we're just going to give this a little bit of a shake. We don't want to stir it because that will break up all of the meat. Just give it a little shake, put it on a medium, make sure it's on a medium flame, and we can put on the lid. Great. Thank you, Barry. We're going to put our dirty dishes into the sink and do a little bit of a tidy up over here. We'll be back in a moment. Okay, are you ready to make some apple crumble?
Yeah.
Yum. Okay, so what we're going to actually start with is our apples. Now, these apples need to be peeled and chopped, and then we're going to place them all into our pan over here. So,
Should I take the stickers off?
yes, definitely, you can take off the stickers. Okay, and we are going to peel these apples. So there's a peeler for each of us, and let's get going.
לאלוקים על הטוב להודות, ולחבר'ה שבאו לרקוד, כל הכבוד. ומי שנכנס מרגיש את הבאס, והלב מזנק לתקרה. זו המוזיקה אותנו מדליקה, אלוקים בשמיים.
That'll do. There we go. Right, let's clear off all of these peels. I'll be back in one moment. And just give our board a little bit of a rinse, and now we're going to cut up the apples. Now, we can cut them in half and take out the core, but an easier way to do that is actually just to take the cheek off each side of the apple, so we're left with the core in the middle, and then we slice off the sides and we're left with a nice little core. And we take our hands on both sides like a little bridge and just slice up those apples.
המוזיקה
go. We've got our dish. Can you help pop them all into the dish? Okay. So we're just going to mix them up a little bit so that they're loose and they're not just sitting like a whole apple all together.
Like not two pieces.
That's
oh,
right.
I found a bunch.
A bunch. Okay, so we're just going to loosen up those bunches. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to bring over the rest of the ingredients we need that we've prepared a little bit earlier. And we're going to pour a quarter of a cup of orange juice straight over those apples. And that's going to help steam them and cook them underneath the crumble. Okay. So now
Yeah.
we're just laying them all nicely in the bottom of the pan. Okay. So now we're going to mix together the crumble mix. If you can get that bowl, please, and spoon. And we've measured out our ingredients here. So we've got 3/4 of a cup of flour, just regular plain flour, 3/4 of a cup. You can pop that in. And we've got 1/2 cup of oats. You can use quick oats or traditional oats. Either will work for this recipe. We have 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Pop that in. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. That's okay. Don't worry about that. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Pop that in. And we've got 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. If you don't have nutmeg, you can just leave that out. That's fine, but it does give it a nice feeling to it and a nice taste to it. And actually, before we mix in the oil, we need to give it a little mix with a spoon. So mix up all of our dry ingredients.
Then the wet ingredients.
And then we've only got one wet ingredient, which is 1/2 cup of oil. Get that cinnamon mixed all the way through. We don't, flying flour this time. Okay, that's it. And now we're going to pop in the oil. So 1/2 cup of oil, and we're going to just be a little bit careful. I'm going to show you when we mix this because we want it to form into crumbs. So we don't want to mix it like a cake. We're just going to try to get some crumbs forming over here.
It looks a bit like crumble.
It does look like crumble. We're just going to toss it about rather than mix it too much. Okay? So the less we mix this, the better. We just want to get it, all the dry ingredients, a little bit wet, just like that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use our hands and we're going to sprinkle this over the apples. And have a go. And we're just going to get it all sprinkled over, and that's going to form the crumble on top of the apples, and the apples are going to steam with the orange juice underneath, and then the crumble is going to get nice and crispy and tasty on top. And we're going to put it on. I might have used a dish that was a little bit too big for this, maybe a little bit of a small dish, but we actually prefer it with more apple and less crumbs on top anyway. We don't like the crumbs to get too thick. And this is adapted from the recipe in the Spice and Spirit recipe called Apple Betty. And we are going to rinse off our hands and pop that in the oven. What do you reckon? Okay. So, there's a little bit of crumble left here on the spoon. We'll get that in. Looking good over there. We're going to have a look at them in a minute. And I'm going to put my crumble into the same oven as my, have that tea towel, please. As my rice. And they're both going to be ready in about 30 to 40 minutes. We're going to check on our meatballs and see how they're going as well. Steaming in there and they are bubbling away. And we're going to let that sit for that same 40 minutes to an hour. And when they are done, we'll come back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us for Chabad Youth Clubs. We hope that you will maybe give your mums a break and you can cook dinner for them. And we hope that you really enjoy our cooking club. But we don't hope to bring you another one. We hope to be back in regular school and regular clubs, don't we?
What if we can do this in school?
That would be fun, but there are already people who do that. Anyway, thank you very much from us, and we'll see you when the food is done. Okay, we are back, and our food looks scrumptious and ready. Okay, here we've got our
steaming hot meatballs.
Steaming hot meatballs. They look delicious. They've been simmering for about an hour. Let's have a look here. We've got yum sauce and meatballs, and they haven't stuck to the bottom. They're just perfectly cooked. We kept them on a low simmer with the lid on the whole time. And we've also got our rice. Now we've got our rice here. I think I might have left this in the oven a little bit too long, but it's now been sitting out of the oven and it is beautiful and fluffy, and we're going to serve that up in just a moment. And what else have we got?
Crumble, apple crumble.
apple crumble. Okay, so let's serve up some rice and meatballs for Berry. Yum. Your favorite dinner, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Berry's made all of her brachos before because there are 3 brachos that we make on rice, isn't there? Okay. You want to have a taste?
Can I have a knife?
Yeah. Okay, let's move this a little bit out of the way for you. It's quite hot. There we go. Have a taste. See how that is. Are you proud of yourself? Now you guys can make this too, but remember, what's the one rule you have to do when you cook in the kitchen?
You have to clean up after and have adult safety.
You have to have adult safety and you have to clean up after. So make sure that you leave the kitchen even tidier than how you found it. Okay, and now for some dessert as well. This is a really special day to have dessert in the middle of the week, but you can prepare this dessert for
Oh, I
Shabbos.
didn't taste the rice yet.
Okay.
Yum.
Yum. And we've got here some delicious crumble. You want to have a taste of this? Just be careful because it might be a bit hot.
Delicious.
Delicious, you heard it? First from Berry Shafter.
Yum.
Right, so we have Berry's tick of approval, and now we want to hear all about you making your own meatballs and rice and apple crumble. Time to give Mummy a night off. That's bye from us here, the Chabad Youth Club. Have a good night.